the messaging everywhere. I mean, just take Disney and their absurd new, I guess, animated series about how America was built on slavery and it was built by slaves and they've never atoned and we want reparations. This is for children. That's the popular messaging right now. Not, you can do it, land of opportunity. To the contrary, it's, no, that shit doesn't work. That's the new messaging.
They're going to try to do that. You know, I was being interviewed on a podcast yesterday. This pastor who runs a church, a Presbyterian church, and they started a podcast. I said, okay, I'd love to be on a podcast. They invited me. We're talking. They said, so what is the biggest challenge we're facing in America today when it comes down to the family nucleus? I said, look, in life, everyone's going to sell you a philosophy. You have to choose which philosophy you want to buy into. Any philosophy you buy into comes with rewards and consequences. For example, if my philosophy is, for you, Patrick, you came from a divorced family. You were born and raised in Iran. You've seen a lot of trauma. You must be dealing with anxiety and panic and trauma and all this stuff. So look, just take the safe route. Maybe take these different medications. Maybe go to this one class because you need that kind of therapy. But poor you, Patrick. If I buy that philosophy, what's the good feeling about it? Well, I have no pressure to do anything. It feels good. I don't have to step up to anything. I don't have to man up to anything. I don't have to show up. No one's expect me to work hard. No one's expect me to win. So life is a safe and warm and fuzzy place. Now, the consequence is you'll be struggling financially. You will eventually become more and more bitter as you age. You'll become more and more upset with the philosophy you bought into. And then eventually, you'll be the story of the grumpy old man sitting around upset at your wife, upset at your kids. You're on your second or third marriage. You're not having your dreams become a reality. But there's a good and the bad. The other philosophy that you buy into, you can do something about your life. Why don't you, instead of watching Netflix and chilling, go pick up a couple business books. Go learn about how money works. Why don't you start a part-time gig? Why don't you go take a master class? Why don't you go take a course on Udemy? Why don't you take some late-night courses? Why don't you go get your real estate license part-time on the side or do insurance or finance? Do something with your life. Turn off the TV. Turn off the radio. You have the time to do something with your life. That message, right? You're listening to it like, okay. And if you do that, maybe one day you'll have a shot at your dreams becoming a reality. So what's the good? What's the bad? Let's go with the bad first. Here's the bad. If they're right, you'll actually have to work after school. You'll have to work after work, which means if you have an 8-to-5 job, you still have to work after 5 o'clock. So maybe you come home at 10 o'clock. Maybe you're going to miss some football games. Maybe you're going to miss some shows on Netflix. Maybe you're not caught up on Ted Lasso. Maybe you're not caught up on some of the shows that everybody else is watching. So yes, you may lose 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, maybe 5,000 hours for 3, 5, 10 years. But then what's the good? 10 years later, you choose what private school your kids go to. 10 years later, you choose what zip code you live in. 10 years ago, you don't look down with a hunch on your back because you feel like you owe everybody everything. 10 years ago, you can stand up tall and impose your beliefs and your confidence into your kids and other people you talk to. But regardless, the philosophy that's being sold to our kids in schools, high schools, colleges, universities is poor you or shame on you. Shame on you for being white and being, a bigot, or poor you for being black or Middle Eastern or Hispanic. Either one of them is a crock of, I don't know if we can curse here or not. This is not.
Yes, you can.
We can't or we can.
You can't. Let it fly.
Is what it is. It's a full-on crock of shit. And unfortunately, we need more brave people and men and women that are not afraid to voice their opinions and their thoughts.
I love everything you just said. It's reminding me in the news today, the actor Idris Elba made these great comments the other day. Now he's getting blowback. So there was an interview by him published Wednesday in Esquire UK. He's British. And he's, award-winning actor. And he was in The Wire. He was in a bunch of great things. I know him from the BBC series Luther. Anyway, so he comes out and he says, I don't refer to myself as a black actor. This label puts me in a box, and race has become an obsession. And this obsession with race can hinder aspirations and growth. Quote, if we spend half the time not talking about all the differences, but the similarities between us, the entire planet would have a shift in the way we deal with each other. As humans, we're obsessed with race, and that obsession can really hinder people's aspirations and hinder their growth. Racism is very real, but he believes it's only as powerful as you allow it to be. He says, I stopped describing myself as a black actor when I realized it put me in a box. We've got to grow. We've got to. Our skin is no more than that. It's just skin. Rant over. and said, I don't like to be asked what it's like to be the first Black to do this or do that. It's the same, he says, as if it would be if I were white. It's the first time for me. I don't want to be the first Black. I'm the first Idris. So this is amazing, right? And, most people sat back and said, right on. I'm thinking of Camille Foster, who comes on the show with the Fifth Column, similar messaging. Thomas Chatterton Williams, he's like, I'm not a Black this. My daughter's not a Black that. She's a person. I'm a person. Stop it. So now you get the root. There, Chanel Janai, who writes out, she's puzzled. Chanel is puzzled by this admission he made. I understand the intentions, but there are a few flaws. For starters, racism is not as powerful as we allow it to be. And goes on to say, why? Because America was founded on racist and anti-Black ideals that continue to systematically oppress Black people, people of color, and other marginalized communities to this day. If all it took was for individuals to say, I no longer give power to racism, then this problem should have been eradicated centuries ago. Secondly, I can understand why you'd think our skin is just skin, but it's not. Our skin should just be skin, but because of systemic racism and global anti-Blackness, what should be looked at as something simple has long been politicized, criminalized, and demonized. And of course, she maintains today we're in the same place as we ever were. This is the problem. Some folks are just set in this mindset, Pat, where it's like, no, you cannot do it. Your skin color is the most important thing.
So first of all, kudos to him for saying that. But here's the part. Megyn, both you and I know this. Within how many minutes or hours of that story breaking, do you think his publicist called him, or his agent called him, or his manager called him, or his friend called him, or his coworker called him, or a former actress or an actor he did a movie with saying, you can't say something like that. You got to take that back. You know how much progress we've made over the years for you to say, we understand you're not American. You got to say something about it. You're hurting our industry, the young actors that are coming up. So then we learn about the man's courage and toughness. If in that moment he breaks, he's afraid of his career. If he stands up, he gains a whole new level of respect from a lot of different people. For example, the great Morgan Freeman. He's a phenomenal actor. He's on Don Lemon. He's on Mike Wallace. I think it's Chris Wallace or Mike. I think it's Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace.
He's doing this interview and they're having the conversation. And he says, why have Black History Month? Do you have a White History Month? No, why don't you have a White History Month? I don't want a Black History Month. And then Don Lemon asks him the question and he challenges him the same exact way. Now, here's what's interesting. You listen to the argument he makes and he sticks to it. He gets a salute. Watch what happens just 3 days ago, which I'm sure you saw this. Last week, this guy who just passed up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the all-time scorer in the NBA, his name is LeBron James. He calls himself King James, okay? He decides to share the conversation that Morgan Freeman had with Wallace on Instagram, not knowing that clip was shared by a man named Charlie Kirk. And he immediately takes that clip down. Why? Because God forbid if he agrees with anything Charlie Kirk says. So what does that tell us? Naturally, everybody has common sense, including LeBron James, including Idris, including all these guys. But the moment you get the calls that you, God forbid, may not be invited to those parties or the next movies or all this other stuff, let me make a statement of apology and say, look, we saw what John Cena did a few years ago. I speak this. Here's a man that speaks their language, speaks Chinese, apologized in Chinese, cried, all of that after a simple comment he made about Taiwan. So it is a very dark world when you're in Hollywood. There's a lot of bullies. It's the industry of where they are about anti-bigotry, yet they're the biggest bigots. They're anti-bully, and yet they're the biggest bullies behind closed doors. But it's great to see some of these guys standing up for themselves.
Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available right now to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. It's not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program, of course, is complicated, but nobody knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work. They figure out how to get you money if you qualify, and then they'll share a percentage of the cash they get for you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify for this, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org do the tough thing for you right now, and that is manage the paperwork and the administrative headaches that they pose between you and your money to help you get up to $26,000 per employee. You may be sitting on a pot of money and you don't even know it. Go to covidtaxrelief.org, 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 and check it out. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.